never get it out now.
So certain are you? Always with you what cannot be done. Hear you nothing that I say.
Master, moving stones around is one thing. This is totally different.
No, no different. Only different in your mind. You must unlearn what you have learned.
All right, I'll give it a try.
No, try not. Do. Or do not. There is no try.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another week of Muskies On Tap. We are bringing to you a very special podcast here. We have one of, I'd say, probably a mentor of ours. He's taught us, a ways of muskie fishing that, at the time we didn't know what to think quite yet on like how to muskie fish. And he brought us a lot of knowledge on local lakes and, you know, and has a great local shop in town. But we're going to be speaking with Todd Powell, aka Tadpole, here shortly, and he runs Tadpole Sports in town. And if you're ever stopping in Eagle River, be sure to stop in his shop. He's usually there a good bit of the time, and chop it up with him if you want to hear any more of the stories that he goes into tonight, because he's got plenty more where that came from. But before I get any further here, let's introduce the other crew members on here, the Mott crew. We got none other than my brother, Max. How you doing tonight, Max?
Good. We just finished up that awesome interview with Tadpole. Yeah, I mean, like you said, he's a guy that gave us a lot of direction in the world of muskies from a young age up until now, even, always a wealth of knowledge. Just a great guy, a lot of fun to chat with. He's always got a story on hand. I think we covered a variety of topics in this interview. I think more so than usual. Everything from stories about the old days to kind of how muskie fishing is progressed into what it is now, and hopefully you guys will enjoy it. I think it's cool. He wears the Northern Wisconsin badge, really proud. So it was really fun to sit down and chat with him. I really enjoyed it. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy this one. And before we dive into the interview here, got to introduce our other co-host, our counterpart, our main man, Brian Eckel, joining us this evening. Brian, how we doing?
I'm doing terrific. Yeah, Tadpole just made my night. Awesome guy to listen to. He's got stories for days. Definitely would like to have him on and I don't know. We just got to have him think of his top 5 best stories and just let him go because he is awesome to listen to. Hilarious guy. And yeah, I haven't seen him in a couple years. We used to stop in there like religiously almost every morning before we go out and fish. And so I'm hoping to get back in there and see him in person in the shop. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy this interview coming up.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that change maybe came in when we stopped getting up for muskie fishing at the crack of 9 a.m. and stopped in the shop. I think nowadays we get up a little bit earlier than that.
That's true.
That's probably why it's changed a little bit. But no, we still stop into tadpoles all the time, live bait as well throughout the winter and everything like that. But yeah, great guy, great storyteller. We're just gonna go right into it. I hope you guys enjoy this one. And yeah, like I said, be sure to stop in Tadpoles when you're in Eagle River. Here with me tonight, and all of us here, we have none other than Todd Tadpole Powell here in Eagle River at Tadpole Sports, local legend of the sport. And we're going to chop it up and talk a lot of fishing here tonight, mainly muskies, but we'll dive into a bunch of stories. So, Todd, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thrilled to be here.
Good. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it, Tadpole. We're very excited to have you on here tonight. Chop it up, tell us some stories. We're gonna get into all your background, kind of what what formed you as an angler, all that good stuff. But I do want to kick us off here tonight with a story you told me would have been 2 years ago now. And it was after a PMTT event. I'd gotten some stitches in my hand, and I was I was feeling a little down, and you were like, you know what? You showed me your hand. You're like, yeah, I got some stories too behind these scars, and it was one that that I think a muskie had bitten you during a tournament as well. If you remember the story I'm talking about, I'd be curious to hear that one again for the people, because that was just an unbelievable story.
Well, actually, there was two of them. So I was fishing a sadly enough a kill tournament on the Cisco chain in 1980, with an old buddy of mine that's no longer with us, a guy by the name of Pinky Hayner, believe it or not. I always called him a 50-year-old, 16-year-old, because he never grew up. And so we popped this 37-pound, 51-incher in a one-day tournament on a Cisco chain, and big fish, right? I mean, way big fish. And Pinky hooks the fish on a DB06 Bagley on a little rock ledge, and sets the hook and gets all excited like anybody would with a 37-pounder. And he comes around the boat, and Pinky's screaming at me, net him, net him, net him. I said, Pinky's too green. He said, net him, net him. He's screaming at me. He's the elder in the boat, okay? So I go to net the fish. Sure shooting. He shakes his head. DB06 hooks on the rim of the net, and now is thrashing against the rim of the net. So I took the net and I threw it in the lake. And the fish swims around the boat 3 times with our net. And this is a tournament, right? We're fishing for cash. So me being pretty stupid, I reached down and grabbed the fish head first under the gill covers, bring him in the boat with the net, flap him down. He bites me. I mean, hits an artery in my thumb. Now the blood's squirting out, and I'm mad as a hornet. So I punched him 3 times and killed him, right? But you have to understand now, this was a kill tournament. We killed him, okay? I ate a lot of muskies, right? My grandfather didn't talk to me for a year after I didn't kill a muskie. He thought, why are you not killing those muskies? We eat those. At any rate, so that was the first bite, all right? And I do have the scars. You've seen them.
Oh yeah.
So then, probably, I'm going to guess and tell you it was maybe 1995, I was guiding some gentlemen on the Eagle River chain about a week before Paul's Pro-Am, which was the big kahuna muskie tournaments. And we were down by, well, I can't tell you where we were. Well, yeah, I will. No, I can't. So I told these guys, we wheel in there and we got some topwater baits going early in the morning, 5:30 in the morning. And I told this guy, there's a big fish by the stump. I've seen him 3 times in the last month. I barely got that out of my mouth. The muskie smokes this topwater. It was probably a Fluger Globe, I'm going to tell you. Okay. The guy sets the hook. Nice fight. I don't want to fight him too hard, because I want to get him back in the lake for the tournament the next week. I don't want to beat him up and sting him too bad. So I get him to the boat, and I didn't really want to net him. So I grab him underneath the gill cover, and he shakes his head and flips the bait over into my forearm. So now I have the muskie. I'm holding him by the gill cover. He's 48 inches. He shakes, the globe flips over and buries into my forearm. And I'm just like, I'm in big trouble here. If I lose my grip on this fish, he's going to tear all the tendons out of my arm. I'll probably never use my left arm again. So I said to the guy and the blood squirting out, I said to the guy in the back of the boat, give me those red-handled pliers. Well, one guy's throwing up, right? He's already throwing up. The other guy hands me the pliers. I almost dropped him in the lake. First thing I did was cut the part of the hook out of my arm, then cut the hook out of the fish, release the fish, and my arm's numb, the blood's pouring out. So we electric moored back to the boat landing. I told these guys, I'd take my boat, go fishing. I'm gonna go see Doc, because I know he's at the coffee shop. So I go to the coffee shop and walk in, and I said, hey, Doc. And he's having coffee with like 6 of the guys in the local coffee clutch that morning. I said, Doc, I got a problem. He goes, what's the matter? And I showed him. He's like, oh, he almost fainted, right? So at any rate, we go to his office. His two nurses come in. They hold me down. And Doc hadn't done this very often, I don't think. And so he puts the vice grips on the hook and he says on the count of three. Well, what doctors do, they don't count to three, they count to two and they pull. So he counted two and pulled. It didn't come out. So now I know I muskies jump. All right. So he finally got it on the third pull. Bottom line, I got back and I finished the day out guiding and yeah, so I got those kind of scars. So the bottom line is you need to get a T Max hook out is what you need in your boat, then you won't have that problem. But yeah, that was one, couple scars there. So
When was that?
That's incredible. I can't believe you went back out after that. But before we get into too many stories, can we reverse it back to when you started guiding and how you got started and when did that all take place?
well, I'll tell you what, I wasn't really good at going to school. I grew up on Silver Lake and Eagle River, which used to be a pretty darn good musky lake. If there wasn't an east wind, I could about guarantee you a 30-incher out there anytime and caught some nicer fish there too. And now the lake is kind of, I don't think it's, it's certainly not what it used to be. But so the bottom line, I had to walk by a lake to go to school every day and I didn't make it to school much. I went fishing. So, yeah, true story. So I ended up quitting school about my third week freshman year of high school, and I went fishing, and I've been guiding ever since. And in probably a matter of 5 years, I was making more money than my teachers, but not much of a retirement plan, I'll tell you that. So,
How did were you working a job at the time or how'd you get your first boat and what was
no,
it?
well, I tell you what, growing up in the Northwoods, we did everything. I mean, I bartended, I installed carpet, I was a steeplechase. I mean, you did whatever you had to do in the season to make a living, you know. That's the way it was up here, and especially without a education, and I had none, except common sense, and I'm still proud of that. Common sense is a scarce commodity in our world anymore, and I'm glad that I have some, right?
Oh yeah.
That's right.
And then in that mix, when did Tadpole Sports come into play? When did you get that shop?
Well, very lucky to meet my wife who saved me because you know, I never, I wouldn't be here, period. I'd been gone, but got a lovely wife and her family been in the greenhouse business and I jumped into that and we had a retail building that was sitting there and I was always into antique fishing and hunting stuff. So I thought, okay, we'll have an antique shop. Well, we got a few dealers in there to kind of, pay the bills. Well, that was dealing with too many personalities for me. So I thought, well, a lot of my clients said, there's no place up north where you can buy quality stuff. Um, and I was at the point in my life to where I was just done buying junk, go buy something good, buy it once and be done. And nobody up here was selling quality stuff for that matter, for me anyway. And I just started, I started really small with a really small loan, had really little inventory, and just kept, throwing money back at it and building inventory and quality stuff with customer service. And that's what we do. And I think people come to my shop and they know, well, hey, this old guy knows what he's talking about. And so let's say, for instance, I see so much of it. Guys come into my shop. One thing though, they'll come into my store and I just bought this new reel at the box store, and the drags broke on it. And I'm like, well, who put the line on for you? And well, some kid. And I said, well, did he put any backer on it? "Well, I think so. Well, sure as shooting. Take the line off. There's no backer on it, so the super line's spinning on the spool, and that's what you run into. And one other thing I would tell you is like, so most of this stuff, which really kind of frustrates me because a lot of people don't know it, like so many your top end tackle is MAP price, minimum advertised price. So we sell it for the same as Cabela's, Bass Pro, any of the box shops, and we do the customer service thing. So if somebody comes and buys, and I'm not an advertisement, I'm just telling you this is the way it is. So if somebody comes in and buys a Panoptics from me, or they come in, they want to buy, 4 trolling rods and reels and boards and line and lures, I'll go jump in their boat and set it up for them. Where do you get that at? You don't, and it's all about customer service for the small guy these days when you deal with the internet and all that, but like I said, a lot of stuff that we sell is quality, minimum advertised price stuff where the MAP price meaning that you can buy it for more, but you can't buy it for less. If you break MAP pricing on a lot of this stuff, these dealers, these manufacturers won't even sell to you anymore. So that's been a big part of my business, taking care of the people that take care of me. You know, so it's pretty easy
Yeah.
that way. You know.
I mean, I can echo that. I mean, we've been coming to your shop for a long time now, ever since we got a place up in Eagle River, and you've always been very kind to us, even as youngsters. You never hesitated to point us in the right direction with gear, all that stuff, but also just even, hey, a little nudge here, a little nudge there. Maybe go check out this lake. Maybe go check out this spot on the chain or whatever. And I think Brian for a while could credit you to one of his personal best muskies. Going into your shop on, I think, a Friday, and you nudged us in one direction. We caught Brian's PB there the next day. So yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. But I want you to take us back a little bit to those early guide days and kind of what was your setup like? What type of clientele was hiring a young guide in Eagle River to take them out? How'd you kind of establish yourself? I mean, were you fishing for muskies specifically, multi-species? Were you taking any trip you could get? Just kind of give us the rundown on how that all got going.
Well, really, back in those years and almost in these years now, I mean, you really you got to do what you got to do to make a living in the Northwoods, right? So there again, I mean, if you think you're going to come here making a living fishing muskies, you're dreaming, you need to be multi-species. And, we're so blessed here to have such incredible water. And not to get off the track a little bit, but I mean, yeah, I mean, I do stream trout, right? I mean, we're talking stream trout to muskies and everything in between, right? I do smallies, which is a passion of mine, walleyes, obviously, and ice fishing. I got out of the ice fishing gig because I'm just too old and wore out for that, and did that for years. Kind of funny in the ice fishing thing. All I did in the ice fishing thing was panfish, and all I did in the summer was game fish, right? So people call me and want to go crappie fishing in the summertime. I'm like, I'm going to give you another guy's name. Although now I'm taking some of my grandsons out crappie fishing, and I hadn't done it for years. And I'll tell you what, I got them dialed in, man. They are in big trouble. They don't have a chance. At any rate, that being said, I just soon not panfish. I'm more of a smallmouth walleye guy, but I'll do whatever. Whatever, hey, that's what it is. You do whatever you got to do to make a living in the Northwoods, right? Just like I said, from installing carpet to whatever it is. I mean, that's what you do in the off season. Bartended, did whatever. That's living in the Northwoods. You can't pick your shots. You gotta pay the bills. So
Sure. But like when you were younger and guiding, like, I mean, obviously to get proficient at fishing all these different species, like I'm sure, it sounds like you were saying, you weren't going to school, you were going fishing. And so,
Yep.
like, I'm imagine, you were just bopping around and exploring, like as a youth, just figuring it out, like, what was that like? I mean, were you just going, all right, today I'm going to go try to fish for smallmouth at X Lake. Tomorrow I'm going to go try to fish for muskies, here or whatever.
Yep. I did, tell you what, probably the thing that really got me into fishing, my father was a guide, my grandfather was a guide, my great grandfather was a guide. It wasn't like guides that you have today where they're all professional guides. We had a resort for over 100 years, and guiding was part of the deal. I mean, so you got up in the morning. What'd you have to do? Well, you had to milk a cow, and you go pick up the eggs, and you had to get the boat ready to go, and then you had to go guide. I mean, it wasn't like, that was your, I have pictures of my great grandfather guiding women, some ladies on the Wisconsin River in 1932, right? And then a couple hours later, he's running across the Wisconsin River with his horse and wagon going to Rhinelander to pick up guests from our resort. Guiding wasn't just guiding; it was part of your four jobs. You know,
Right.
but that being said, yeah, I mean, back in those days, you had to do everything to make a living, and maybe to some degree you still have to today. Not that many
Mhm.
guys making a living full time, and there's other things too. You have to go out and PR thing and do shows and get sponsors and but
Yeah.
yeah, I
No,
just
I
I just way lucky that way.
right. And so like when yeah, it sounds like it was just kind of part of the gig, right? And but obviously like this being a muskie podcast, I always really like talking to people that have fished the Vilas, Oneida County area for a long time because I think it does have such a history up there, and it's always fun to talk to people that have fished it through different cycles. So like when you got started, in high school, in your later teens, early 20 years, like when you're fishing for these muskies, like what was muskie fishing like back then? I mean, you're talking about tournaments that are, you catch and kill type stuff. Like it just
Yep.
felt like it was a totally different culture back then.
Well, it was. In fact, people do not realize. I just had the conversation with a guy today. So I grew up on Little Lake and Eagle River, great musky lake in its day, and then I lived on the chain. I lived down on the Waters Meet, okay, with my darling wife 100 years ago. It seems like, and when I saw somebody musky fishing, I knew him. All right, there was nobody here musky fishing, right? So we had pretty funny. We had Blue Eyes, right? He threw mud puppies. We had the Greek, and the Greek was really funny guy because he had this accent and he couldn't say Suik, so he said Zuik. So I said, Greek, what'd you get him on? A Zuik, right? And so funny, but honest to God, I mean, we had Harvey Brown, a couple of the old timer guides, Grandpa Patton, who had an old rowboat with an overstuffed chair in it. Honest to God, right? I mean, my first trolling motor was a Minn Kota 10. Okay, 10 pounds of thrust. Okay, I think I paid $49 for it, and I put it on the back of one of my first guide boats, which was an old Lund 16-footer, and I never read the instructions. So at midnight, opening night, I cranked up my 25 horse and went across the lake with my Minn Kota deployed, right? It exploded off the back of the boat. Should have killed me coming in the boat because nobody told me you're supposed to have it tilted up, right? I just thought that you just put it on and go. Okay. So that was 10 pounds of thrust. All right. So, I mean, we're talking big time. Okay. So I did
Mhm.
give you for instance, I just put the new Altera Quest trolling motor on my guide boat. Retail $4,100. All right. My first guide boat motor and trailer was $400. Right. I made like a $500,000 with that boat over like a 12-year period. Right. I'm not making any money anymore. I can tell you that when I got $4,100 trolling motor. All right. But it's kind of handy to hit the button and everything goes up and down, right?
Oh yeah, no, that's real nice. So you're talking a little bit about technology and obviously how far it's come. But like when you were musky fishing back in the day, like how are you when you went to a new lake? You've told us about countless of lakes to go check out. So obviously you've done your homework, you've done your exploring. I mean, what was it like going to these like new bodies of water back then to try to fish for muskies? Like how are you finding good spots? Were you just eyeing stuff up and hoping for
It
the
was,
best? Or
back then, there again, zero technology, right? We had
Mhm.
nothing. We rode, if you were lucky, you had a little bit of a trolling motor.
Mhm.
It was elbow grease, so I mean, so my first flasher was a Lowrance green box, right? Which I actually took and turned it into one of the first ice fishing flashers, right? So man, I was smoking these fish. These guys are like, "What's he doing?" Hey, I had a flasher that I kind of jury rigged, So I'm seeing these deep water crappies, and I mean, people, I could tell people stories about the fish that we caught here, in the wintertime. Excuse me, with or without technology, it was just stupid. I mean, there was crappies here, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 inches, and I mean, and we weren't saints back then. We didn't realize that it was we all kind of thought it was an unlimited resource. There again, we have to understand we were eating muskies a lot, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so we started releasing muskies probably about 82, I'm going to tell you, right? And I remember catching a big muskie on the lake that I grew up on. My grandfather, we had a beautiful home on the point there, and I pulled up and I was on the original board of Muskies Inc., right? Not to
Mhm.
get off the subject here, but I remember I caught this fish, and I pulled up in front of the house, and I yelled at Grandpa, and he came to the window, and I picked up like this 42, 44 incher, showed it to him, and he's up there going like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I set it down, and it swam away. And
Oh no.
he came out the door, and he's like, what did you do? I said, Grandpa, I said, I let him go. He said, why? He said, there was a lot of eating on that fish. I said, Grandpa, I said, if you want to catch 48 inches, you got to let 42 inches go. He could never figure that out. He just like, no, we got it. We got to eat them fish. So
So
got
wait,
to see that.
real quick,
Yep.
because you hear this a lot. Like everyone says, back then we used to kill them, and obviously now, you know, there's a whole range of how people handle muskies. You know how it goes on social media. But like, do you remember what the reasoning was? Like when this kind of phenomenon took over of like, hey, we're gonna start releasing these things. Like,
You know,
was it just kind of one of those word of mouth things where like, hey, we actually can't just kill them all. We got to start releasing them, or was like why did that shift in mentality even happen?
it was pretty much Muskies Inc.
Yeah.
Muskies Inc. kind of brought it on. I mean, I was on the board with Dick Rose, right? Discover Wisconsin, Chet Myers. I mean, there was some talent there, and you talk about a bunch of guys having fun. We had fun, but there was a lot of good people involved there, and some of them were shysters. I might have been a shyster at one time. I don't know.
Still are.
But we had so much fun, and we were obviously concerned about the resource, but we didn't realize it. It was like a unlimited supply. I can tell you days uh, on the Eagle River chain in the evening. So we're talking probably early 70s. So I'd be out there. There again, there was so few muskie fishermen. I had some spots on these big flats where I could go out. And back then, we were very limited on lures, right? We had the mud puppy, uh, Fluker Globe, still a great bait today if you could find an original one. And if you do, I'll show you how to rig it up where it really catches fish. Um, I'd have, I've had evenings where I'd have three different muskies hit on one cast. Right? Think about that. I mean,
Jesus.
it's just stupid. I mean, it's just like you tell people that, and they look at you like you're nuts, and I'm like, hey, I saw it. I live there. I have no reason to lie to anybody. I'm not BSing anybody, you know. So, one thing I would tell you that there again, a lot of people won't believe. I think the best day I ever had muskie fishing was in 5 hours with two Jewish gentlemen, right, who never casted for muskies in their lives. Um, we caught, and I'm going to be conservative. I'm going to cut it way back. So we caught like 19 in 4 hours. We had two doubles, maybe three doubles, right? And if these guys knew what they were doing, we would have caught 35 muskies in 3.5, 4 hours. And they thought this was what muskie fishing was, right? They'd never done it before. I told them to take 2 weeks off and quit. I said, you guys will never see anything like this again. But it was a perfect day, light drizzle, warm, calm, early in the morning, right? Every fish in the lake was eating. It was absolutely unbelievable. All top water, right? All fish top water.
Oh my God.
Every spot we went to, boom, 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 boom. And honest to God, it was so funny because these guys are like, they honestly went home thinking that's what musky fishing was like. And there was a gentleman, in fact, it was probably about 8:30 in the morning. We started at 7. We probably already caught 7, maybe 8. And this boat stops 100 yards from me, and he drops his electric motor in. He's in the middle of the lake, and he's heading right for me. And I'm thinking, what's going on here? So the guy comes up, and I recognize him. And we used to run a tournament out of the Braywood years ago called the Mega Muskie 100. This guy and his mother should have won it 2 years in a row. She was like 80. This old gal could catch fish,
Good
right?
fish. Yeah.
And at any rate, so he comes up to me and he's like, and he's just being polite because he knows I'm guiding. He doesn't want to come in and bother me. And he comes up to me and he gets like 50 yards away and he's like, Tadpole, are you seeing what I'm seeing? I said, yep. He said, I'm going home waking up my ma. He said, she ain't going to believe this. Because, I mean, he had the same thing. Every fish in the lake was eating, right? And it's just, I mean, just think about that. I mean, it's just like nobody wants to believe you, but I don't have to lie. You know, I've
Yeah.
seen the good and the bad, and this was unbelievable. So I think we had at least 2, if not 3 doubles. So we had 2 on at once, 3 times in 4 hours, right? And then in
That's
between, it was just like 1 every 15 minutes, all on top water.
That's unreal.
It is unreal, right? It really is.
So
And that being said,
were there a lot of lakes?
a lot of what?
Were
I'm
there? I
sorry.
was just gonna ask if there was a lot of lakes in Vilas County that were just like chocked full of muskie, or did you still have your
Well,
bad lakes and good lakes?
people, I mean, catch and release obviously is helping, but honestly, there was so many muskies back in the 70s and the early 70s, and nobody chasing them. Okay, virtually, 0 tournaments, pressure, and I look back at the topwater thing. So back, I'm a big topwater guy, man. Who doesn't like topwater, right? And I look like Eagle River chain. I mean, these muskies would be, you're cranking a topwater. They're 3 feet in the air with your bait. Now it seems like they follow. They're like, oh, I've seen this guy before, and they come in on the double figure 8 and swipe and leave. These fish just ate it. I mean, it was just stupid. I mean, they ate it. I mean, you know, how fun is that? How many videos have you seen where you're cranking a top water these days in the musky fishing world and he's 3 feet in the air with your bait? No, they don't do that anymore. They come when they look and they figure 8, and you gotta, figure 8 your, whatever you're throwing under the water and try and tease them. Back in those days, they just ate it. You know, that wasn't a lot of fun, right? It was so cool. I mean,
Sounds like a
I'm so
bad
lucky
time.
I'm so lucky to see that. And before I forget this too, I'm going to tell you a story, and anybody can call me a liar. I'm going to tell you 2 stories. All right.
All right.
Anybody
Perfect.
can call me a liar, but I saw it. So this is on my children's eyes. Okay. I caught my client caught a 48-inch tiger on the chain, right? Early in the morning, 2 guys from San Francisco, older gentlemen. I still guide them. They're a little older than me, so who knows how long this gig's going to go on, right? So we wheel in this spot, and it's a big flat. There's a little chop blowing in there, right? And we're throwing some top waters. It's probably going to be like, whopper, no, whopper, yeah, maybe, yeah, probably before whopper ploppers. We're throwing globes, something like that. Could have been a tallywhacker, right? We get in there and boom, wham, this fish hits, and I mean just crushes it, right? 48-inch tiger, right? Gorgeous fish, right?
Oh yeah.
Get him in. Of course, this was before back then we had cardboard cameras. Remember those? Okay, the ones that cost you like $2. Okay, so these guys are taking pictures. They didn't turn out worth a hoot, right? So I always, whenever on those flats, I didn't have waypoints, right? So on those flats,
Yeah.
I would throw a buoy because I want to come back through there and see why he was there, where he's laying.
Sure.
All right, so we wheel back in. We got blown out of there with the wind. I threw the buoy, let the fish go, started the motor up, swung back out, came back through right up to the buoy. wham, deja vu all over again.
No.
48-inch tiger muskie hit the same freaking bait, 10 feet from the buoy, right? And we lose the fish at the net, all right? And I'm just like, everybody's like, you think it was the same fish? Well, if you have two 48-inch muskies within 15 yards of each other, yeah, it was the same fish. There's no question in my. I saw him. He's right there. We just caught him. He ate it again. So my dear friend Dan Matuzik, best muskie fisherman to ever put on a pair of pants in history. Period. Game over. No argument. I win. Period. All right. So Dan told me a few years back, we were talking. He said, Tadpole, he said, there's nothing you can learn from a tiger muskie. There is no pattern. You can catch a tiger muskie in 2 feet of water, 200 feet of water, 15 feet. There's no pattern, but that's the way tigers are. But I saw that. I had to see it to believe it. Okay. I mean, and I did. All right. The other story I want to tell you is this was a trolling deal, right? So back when trolling was relatively legal or whatever it was, who knows these days. Of course, in Wisconsin, you gotta fish and hunt with a lawyer and a nun now. You know what I mean? You don't know what you can do, where you can do it. All right. So I'm trolling with a couple clients, right? And we're allowed to have 9 lines. We have 8 lines out. I have 6 boards out, 2 flat lines, right? So we fished the same pattern for an hour. Prime time, to give you an idea on what the power hour, what the major can do, right?
Mm-hmm.
The major, we started at 7. The major was at 8:30. At 8:31, okay, 5 of my boards went back at the same time. I thought I ran up on a reef, although I knew I didn't go up on a reef because I know the water, right? So we catch 2 7-pound walleyes, an 8-pound walleye, a 9-pound walleye, and a 47-inch brokeback muskie at the same time. So if you want to talk about majors and minors, well, mister, we just met the majors. Let me tell you what. It was absolutely think about that. Okay. This is in northern Wisconsin. This is not Lake Erie. This is northern Wisconsin. Right. 2 7 to 8 to 9 and a 40. I got a picture of the brokeback muskie. You've never seen anything grotesque in your life. It just, I don't know if it's some stocking or somebody dropped him when he was a 3-footer and broke his back. Got a big hump on him and
just looking like a horizontal S.
Yeah, pretty cool. So
that's awesome. That's awesome.
We could go on for days.
Well, that's why we brought you on, man. I mean, we've heard a handful of these stories, but I know that you got a million of them.
Well, I've always told people that all my bullshit is based on fact. Okay, that's all I can do for you.
I gotta say, I'm stunned to speak, Tadpole, on some of those stories about how the Northwoods used to be. I mean, I've heard some, but now there's some more. And going back to those days, what was the first muskie tournament that you were in? And if you can remember, or maybe some of the just like the early day muskie tournaments and kind of how that was. Because I mean, if there's some of this crazy action, I mean, was there some of this going on in tournaments as well?
Yeah, you know what? Probably my first muskie tournament that I can recall was on the Cisco chain, and I think that was 1980, and it was put on by just a bunch of guys up there. I'm going to tell you there was, I don't know, 40 boats, 50 boats at the most. And Black Oak, I think the Black Oak Tavern up there might have had a deal with it. And I was fishing my buddy Pinky Hainer, and that goes back to the same story about the finger bite, and he swam around the boat with the Dick and Don lap. So at any rate, Pinky and I catch this fish at, I'm going to say 9 o'clock, first morning of the tournament, and of course there again we killed him, right? And that's what you did back then. So
Tadpole, real quick, do you know that story is in the book Time on the Water?
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
Time on, yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
Cool.
Yeah. And so we take that fish to Eagle River, and from Land Lake. So we're up and go back to Eagle River. And I think we camped that night, so there was probably a little alcohol involved that night before the tournament, I'm guessing. Maybe quite a bit. In
Just a
fact, I
hunch.
think I might have wet my pants that night. I'm not sure, but um, so we get back to Eagle River, and Pinky and I we hit every bar from the Cisco chain to Eagle River and back, including Sainer, uh, Land Lakes, Conover, Phelps. Yeah, so we get back and we go out and we pop another one. We go out and pop like a 45 incher, right? But while we were gone, weighing the fish and partying, Dick and Don Lapp, of course, Dick Lapp, Hall of Famer, right? Just wonderful man, dear friends of mine. His brother Minnow, his wife Dolores caught the world record tiger. And there again, dear friends of mine. In fact, her tiger muskie hangs in my shop. So proud to have it there, and just a great family. You talk about woodsmen and fishermen and cool people. I mean, there they are. Um, so at any rate, we get back, and Pinky and I we're a little tuned up. We're thinking, well, we can probably go catch another one. So we go out and we fish for like 20 minutes and catch like a 44, 45 incher. While we were weighing our fish and partying, Dick and Don caught a 36.5 pound 51 incher, was a half pound lighter than ours. So we won first place in the tournament. They won second place in the tournament, and then ended up being the second and third biggest muskie caught in Wisconsin that year, which was kind of cool.
Very
But yeah, great fishery up there, and not a ton of fish in it, but some big fish. That fish hit they're again a DB06 Bagley fire tiger. Yeah, cast. Oh yeah, cast.
wow.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Heck, nobody knew how to troll back then except Dick Rose. In fact, Dick, who discovered Wisconsin, and Dick was the guy that was involved with the controversial Wisconsin record walleye thing, which Dick was a good guy. I mean, he was a friend of mine. He was a little bit of a shady character, but we had a lot of those around here back then, and including me, I guess. But um, so Dick trolled for like 44 days in a row without catching a fish, right? On the 45th day, he caught the Michigan State record in Thousand Island Lake with old Doc Pivar, right? So, I mean, think about that. So 44 days trolling without a fish? I mean, I'd rather listen to Yoko Ono records than do that. You got to be kidding me. Holy smoke. Yeah, most people don't know who Yoko Ono is. At any rate, but yeah, true story. So bottom line is, yeah. So in fact, when we caught that 37 pounder, Dick had found a Cisco floating that had 5.5 inch bite marks on it. Okay, so that 37 pounder that we killed that day of the tournament, my recollection was 4.5 or 4 3/4 inch bite mark, right? So big fish. And these are old fish because they're, Northwoods fish. These fish are 13, 14, 15, 16 years old, So, a lot of great memories. I can't believe I can remember them, to be honest with you.
Oh, it's impressive. I mean, yeah, like in your shop, you got a lot of trophies. So, was there any other tournaments that you did up here in the Northwoods? I mean, I know that you've done a few.
Yeah,
Did you you
I was
yeah.
I'll tell you what, one of my fondest memories, um, my dad, when I was fishing on the Walleye Trail in 92, my dad called me. He'd living over in Park Falls area on Butternut Lake, and my dad called me, and my dad was he guided when he was a kid, and World War II hero, flying B-17 bombers when he was 20 years old. Um, I mean, these were the greatest generation. Just to give you an idea, a 20-year-old kid that was fishing muskies and walleyes in Little Saint Germain Lake, and 8 months later, he's flying a B-17 bomber over Germany, dropping bombs. He's 19, 20 years old, right? And yeah, I mean, Silver Star, Distinguished Service Cross, Purple Heart. I mean, my God, these were just kids. My dad was just such a phenomenal person. But So at any rate, so I'm fishing on the walleye trail, and I had a good run. 92, I was fortunate, and I won a major in Devil's Lake, North Dakota. I won the national championship, won the Zebco U.S. National Crappie Championship, won 2 major muskie tournaments that year. You know, pure dumb luck, but whatever. You know, fortunate to have that. So my dad calls me out of the blue, and he's like, "Well, you know, they're having a big muskie tournament over here on Butternut Lake by Park Falls, you know," and he says, "I thought maybe you and one of your hotshot buddies would like to come over and, you know, fish the tournament." So I could kind of feel he was hinting around a little bit, you know, and I'm like, "Well, Dad, how about I come fish with you?" "Well, I don't know. I mean, you think I can do it?" And "Yeah, I think you can do it, Dad. And yeah, I'll come over and fish with you, right?" Well, we get over there, and excuse my language. Okay, so the first day it was tough. It was pretty flat. The second day, the wind picks up, and like Grandpa used to say, it was blowing like a busload of. All right. I mean, it was freaking honking, right? That lake runs north south, right? It's like, I don't know, 7 miles long, coming down through the narrows. You got 2.5, 3 footers, right? It is freaking blowing. I'm driving an 1890 Lund, Pro V, and these other guys, you know, they didn't have a clue how to deal with this wind, but I was dealing with a lot of wind on the tour, right? So I put the drift socks out, right? I angled up on that weed line. We smoked 2 big ones, win the tournament. It's the last time I ever fished with my dad. God bless him. So proud of that. My dad was such an influence on me. And that's something that we haven't
That's
talked
cool.
about. Not only my dad, but the people in Eagle River, right? The guides here. Some of these guys never got the the distinction that they deserved. Marv Elliott, Buana, great fisherman, great friend of my dad's and myself and my uncle. I guided with him forever. Guy by the name of Jim Seifert, who happened to be my uncle. Okay, so we talked about jig fishermen. Jim Seifert from Eagle River brought jig fishing to the Midwest, right? He lived here in Eagle River forever. His family spent his winters in Florida. Brought barracuda jigs up here in the 1960s to jig for walleyes. These are like 3/8 ounce, half-ounce jigs that we're casting on Shakespeare Wonder rod and reels with our closed face spin casting rods with 8-pound test. You throw these jigs up on shoreline, it sounded like you threw a golf ball in there, right? I mean, there's no finesse here. These guys caught walleyes up here with those jigs, and Jim Seifert is the guy that brought jigs not only to Wisconsin, he brought jigs to walleye fishing, and nobody knows that. He did.
Yeah.
I still have some of his homemade barracuda jigs right at home. So these guys, my dad, Jim Seifert, Marv Elliott, on North Twin, and I'm going to tell you, it was 1961 or 1962, had a 3-man limit, 15 walleyes. The smallest they had was 9 pounds. They had 2 14.5-pounders was their biggest. They had a 15 fish limit from 9 pounds to 14.5 pounds, right?
That's crazy.
Absolutely unheard of. Absolutely unheard of. So, I mean, you know, people don't know that, you know, and I know it because I saw it, right? I mean, I watched it. I watched them clean the fish, right? Pretty cool, you know, that everybody thinks, I don't know where people think jig fishing came from. It came from Florida jigging for barracudas, where it came from. So,
That's
pretty
wild.
neat.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like, obviously you've known a lot of really great fishermen. You've probably taken out some amazing clients too. And I know you mentioned this to me once. We can edit this out if this isn't true, but did you take out Jim Irsay as a client one time for
Actually, no,
fishing?
Jim Irsay, one of my customers is a private owner. I shouldn't say that. I can't even hardly say that. Kind of a silent order, the Indianapolis Colts. Okay.
Okay.
So I fish with guys like Gorman Thomas. I could tell you that story. Gorman Thomas. Tom Hanks called me, and I turned him down. Right? I didn't know it was him. He calls me up. He wants to go trout fishing, and I just said, "Nah, I don't have time." So I sent him to another guide buddy of mine, and like the day later, this guide buddy of mine calls me and he goes, man, that was cool, so cool, Ted. Well, thanks so much. That was so cool. And I'm like, what? He said, that guy that you sent to me, that was Tom Hanks. And I'm like, what? Tom Hanks and his yellow lab, they wanted to go trout fishing. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I missed that one.
Oops.
But yeah, no, I fished with some people that don't want me to mention their names. Yeah, I fished with so many good people, rich people, poor people, middle class, doesn't matter. I treat them all the same. Most of them that I've met are pretty cool. You know, they really are. Norm from Cheers, right? Yeah,
No
I mean,
way.
oh yeah, Bill Murray. Bill's a friend of mine. I used to go out with Bill's little sister. That's a whole other conversation there.
I save that
Yeah, the
one for the
mayor.
bar.
Yeah, yep. But yeah, but I just so fortunate to still be here and talk to guys like you that have the enthusiasm that I have and the love of the Northwoods and love of what we do. And I'm a very lucky guy. I got a great family. Um, and I'm still looking down at the flowers, man. So I mean, got a lot of buddies that aren't, you know.
Yeah. No, truth. All truth there. I mean, good shit. So let's kind of pivot a little bit because I mean, like as you're a self-admitted, older guy in the sport, and I think right now, obviously, we talked about it a little bit before we started recording here. There's a lot of changes that are going on. I think in the sport of muskie fishing and also just kind of fishing as a whole with the advancement of technology. But I think credit to yourself. Like I think you're somebody, even though you've been doing it for so long. You talk about throwing buoys down to mark flats and coming back on fish. Now you're kind of embracing the technology side of things a little bit.
Well,
Would
I'll
you,
tell you,
would you agree with that?
yep, this is the way I look at it. Okay, so again, I'm pretty old timer. I remember when the first compound bow came out, right? Boy, that's the end of the deer herd. It's done. Okay, you might as well just go home. They're not going to be in a deer left. All right. Then I remember what was the next one was the let's see, probably would have been the game camera. Okay. Okay, so you got a game camera. Well, now we have a game camera that calls your phone, right, and tells you that there's a deer or a buck or a bear at your deer, live right now. You're in your office. You're driving down the road. Okay, so you talk to the guys. So the forward-facing sonar thing. All right. So yeah, the technology is incredible. Absolutely. Is it cheating? I'll tell you what. It doesn't make them bite. But now, if you start looking at these pro bass guys, some of these guys that are so overwhelmed by it, what is the difference between a forward-facing sonar and bed fishing a smallmouth bass, where you can see them? None. Right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I'm going to catch more fish bed fishing than I am with a forward-facing sonar. Right? Do I agree with it? You can't stop technology. I have always said it's not how you catch them, it's what you do with them after you catch them, right? But just the learning thing. So I'll tell you what. So I've had forward-facing sonar in my boat for 5 years. I took it out by myself, not guiding. The first 5 minutes I used it. I called my wife and I said, Cindy, I don't think I'm ever coming home again, right? Only because I learned so much. I've been doing this 50 some years, right? 17,000 days guiding them. Think about that. 17,000 days guiding. Okay. That's how much I've sat in the back of my boat. All right.
That's a lot of days.
And I can go out there and learn that much. There again, doesn't make them bite, but to learn that much in 10 minutes. So we look at 2D side imaging, whatever you want to look at. And I go out there and look at these rock piles that I have guided all my life. And I go in with 2D sonar, top of the line, hummingbird stuff, and go out and run around these rock piles. Mark 1 fish, 2 fish, 3 fish, no fish. I'm not going to fish it, right? So I go in and lock in and spot lock on these rock piles and vertical jig a drop shot which I have my own little rig, by the way. If somebody stops at the shop, I'll teach them that.
Yeah, there you go.
And watch these fish come out of the rocks. They were there all the time. We never fished them because we couldn't see them. They're still there, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's stupid. It's just like, oh my God, honey, I'm not coming home, right? I'm not kidding you. It was just like, and do they always bite? No. But another thing I'll tell you, what is fascinating in the last 3 years is how these fish have picked up on that panoptic signal, right? They know you're there. The big ones, they're gone. They swim up to my bait and they turn and run like you have leprosy. They are gone. You know, in my boat, right? When I see them, they don't eat my bait. They eat my customer's bait. They won't eat under that signal. I mean, occasionally, obviously, you get an aggressive one that's going to come in and smoke it anyway, right? But it's fascinating. It really is. Like I said, am I for it? You're not going to stop it. There again, we have to regulate our fishery with bag limits and size limits, right? This technology is coming, right? The technology world, we're in it. This is it. So yeah, protect our fishery. Protect our fishery. Let me tell you this. So Wisconsin, 25 crappie bag limit on some of these lakes. How stupid is that?
Unreal.
I mean, Minnesota went to 10, 20 years ago. Here's Wisconsin still powdering their nuts at 25. You got to be kidding me. It's stupid.
We had, I mean, just this last weekend, Max, we caught, I mean, we went crappie fishing for the first time in May in a couple of years, and we caught 10, kept 10, kept one walleye and 2 perch to feed 5 people. And we had, I think, enough for 3 meals of that worth almost. And I was like, oh my God, that right there, you know, I was like, yeah, gotta limit that. But with the live scope and the, you know, you're saying the beam with these fish, I mean, I know you're talking about, you know, walleyes, bass, probably muskies as well. Have you found anything to kind of, you know, get past that, or maybe like have you tried turning it off, or like once you find them, or is there a way around that at all for, you know, helping people get fish if they're seeing them on live scope and they're not getting them to eat?
You know, I think all I've seen is that where you see them and basically turn it. But most of my thing is on the down view, okay, to where that beam is right under the boat and it's pretty strong in there again. So I'm vertical jiggling my drop shot rig under the boat, and there again they'll come in by me and they'll turn and they'll go like, so my client one sitting 3 feet from me, the other one sitting 6 feet from me. They'll go eat their baits, but they won't eat mine. So, you know, I just don't have them catch the fish anyway. So whatever. But no, I have seen these fish get wise to that signal without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I figured they would, you know, somewhat adapt to it. I'm still trying to kind of flush out exactly how I feel about it. Obviously, we have a live scope. You know, I'm glad we do, I guess. I think it's like you were saying, it's been almost like an expedited like school lesson on what happens underneath the water, because you're kind of seeing it all transpire down there. I mean, it's just weird because, like, you know, we're us three, or, you know, we're all in our 20s. I might be 30, but us three, we're all in our 20s, and you know, we've grown up with like having technology. We've never really had to, you know, start like when we started musky fishing, sure, maybe we didn't have like the best stuff, but we've always kind of had that technological like help. It's never been marking waypoints with buoys. It's never been visually seeing rock bars and going back to fish it. And so, like you're saying, I mean, the technology is here. It's here to stay. I think at this point, instead of fighting about, you know, should we ban it? Should we not ban it? It's more like, okay, how can we make it just to a point where everybody, you know, I guess this is a little bit wishful thinking, but it's like, if you're going to use it, just use it in the right way. You know, I think it is a little bit of a dangerous tool, and I think that's what makes me a little bit nervous about it. But it's almost like if it advances more, which again, it probably will, but that's where I think it gets, you know, if there is a line and the line is being crossed, like some point in time, I feel like it could be. Are we there right now? you know, man, we're seeing muskies come up on a heat mapped live imaging, interacting with baits, interacting with suckers. It almost feels kind of weird to see like you're peeking behind the curtain of something that you shouldn't be looking at almost, you know.
I get it because I've had friends and clients out this last year, and these guys are accomplished fishermen, and I tell you what, for me, there again, it's my job. I know where they live, right? So I can go to their
Right.
house and I can find them, right? Because I know where they lived for 50 years, right? And I can wheel in there and find them. There again, it doesn't make them bite. But I've had buddies look at me and they're like, in 3 minutes we go out and I put a slip bobber on a 7 pounder and jerk them. It's probably the only 7 pounder within a quarter mile and catch them. They look at me like, that ain't right. And I said, I get it, I get it. But um, there again, if you look at the big picture, you, it is scary to a degree, but there again, you have to regulate your fishing with your bag limits and size limits. I've always said that. As far as the technology itself, yeah, there's more coming. There's no doubt about it. There's more coming.
Right.
So you have to. I think in the tournament world, the PMTT, and I have, and this is probably a little controversial. I have some problems with the PMTT. I do, and only because I'm old, and there again, I can say stuff, okay, because I don't care. All right,
Right.
30-inch size limit is stupid. That's just dumb. There's no reason that we should be handling 28-inch fish to see if they're 30 inches. These fish need to be released in the water, not netted, not bump boarded. Let them go. All right. I think they need to take that up to 34 inches. I get the whole thing, but when you get older, it's not about the accolades. It's about the resource. Take care of the fish, right? 30 inches, that's just stupid. I heard Muskies Inc. went to 30 inches on some of their stuff. That's just stupid. These are the guys that are, pushing the muskie thing. There's no reason that you shake a 30-inch muskie off of the side of the boat, 28-incher, maybe people don't like to hear this. I don't care because I'm old, right? I don't care, right? Take care of
Mhm.
the resource, right? So, and then you get into the fish, the forward facing thing. There again, honest to God, I mean, the whole thing that there again, if you look at it, there again, the big picture. So you listen to these bass guys, Randy Blockett, big proponent, he's against the forward facing thing, okay? And then you listen to the guy talking like Joe Smith, boy, he's a heck of a bed fisherman. What is a bed fisherman? If you can see, you can catch a bass on a bed, right? A bed fishing is more, it is more, what's the word I'm looking for? Bed fishing is more than even forward facing. Bed fishing, you can see the fish. Forward fishing, yeah,
Mhm.
you can kind of see the fish once in a while, but bed
Mhm.
fishing, I mean, I could take a 200-acre lake in northern Wisconsin with 3 boats, and go out and clean off the beds and wipe out the lake in a day. Wipe it out. Virtually take 40% of the population in a day. What are you gonna do with forward facing? They don't always eat. So I mean, there
Yeah.
again, am I for the technology? Yeah, I kind of like to see the old days, but not going away. It's going to be here.
Well, right.
Got to deal
It's
with it.
not going away. And that's where I think I struggle with it is because it's here, but there's no real there's no real like fine line on how to regulate it. And there's a difference between when you have one forward facing sonar, two, three, four, units
Absolutely.
in your boat.
Yeah. Excuse
Like
me. I
there's
exactly.
no
I
right.
I agree. So if PMTT, any of these guys want to deal with it, people have made the investment. The technology is there. One transducer, pretty simple, right? Not 7, not 5, not 3, not 2 on the transom. One transducer, done deal.
I mean, because I
Right?
I don't know. I mean, Gus, I don't want to speak for you, but like honestly, I think we musky fish better when we're not using it for the most part of the time. I mean, if
No, I agree.
I do.
I
I
get it.
completely do.
Yep.
I mean, I gotta admit here, I mean, after using it a whole bunch of times, I mean, we've used it in a bunch of different situations, and I don't know if we've successfully caught a fish by like quote unquote sharpshooting it. I mean, it's been extremely difficult. I mean, looking at a screen and getting the fish to bite. I mean, that's like, I know some people might just be like, "Oh, dude, like what are you doing? Like how are you messing that up?" And it's like, I don't know, man. I don't enjoy staring at that while hopping whatever bait I got. And you know, that's, how to catch a fish. I don't enjoy that, and I know there's some people that agree, some people that disagree, but that's fine there. But
I
yeah, the
think
forward facing is what's that, Brian?
I was just gonna say, I think like, listening to Tadpole's stories about like low pressure back in his heyday and how there was just a lot more muskie, they were a lot easier to catch, and now not only do you have way more musky fishermen, which is great, but there's a lot more pressure on the lakes. The fish are seeing all these new baits. The fishermen are getting better. Like, there's resources to learn how to become a better musky fisherman. And then on top of it, now you have live scope, which you can, I mean, if you have one of them, and especially if you have five of them, you can put down the middle of the lake in a basin where people normally wouldn't even fish, and you can find a muskie
Yeah,
just in open water, and then all of a sudden you can bombard it with baits, and it again, it might eat, it
right.
might not, but it just goes adding, I think, more pressure to these fish that usually aren't pressured.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, that makes it
I
tough.
think like any argument though, like I think the problem with this whole live scope dialogue is like a lot of people like to segment it in just like black and white, one and two, green, blue, whatever. There is some gray area here on how you use technology, and like, it's not it's not a cure all. Like you've kind of heard us talk about. I mean, we have a unit, we've used it. Tadpole has a unit, he uses it. It's like he's saying, it doesn't make the fish bite. And in the same breath, like if you're using it as a nice educational tool, it's kind of just like another thing. You have your side imaging, you have your 2D, you have your lake chip, you have the live scope to kind of see how spots lay out. Like it is a really good resource. If they banned it, like, okay, it's all good, no worries. Like obviously, if you make the financial investment into it, you'd be probably pretty bummed. But it's not like the end all be all, in my opinion. You have like one unit in your boat, and that's just a personal like thing that I've seen fishing with it. People definitely could say, well, that's just not true. Again, this is pretty musky specific because we've never really used it to fish for smallmouth and walleyes and crappies. I could see how that would change things, but again, is like Tadpole saying, change your bag limit, and that kind of solves that issue. If you're taking care of the fish after you catch them, it's not as big of a deal. But yeah, I just, this whole live scope dialogue thing, obviously it's a hot topic right now, but I just feel like there's a lot more people that are a little bit more in the gray with it. And not so like for it to the point where they're arguing for it, and against it to the point where they're like, oh my God, like fishing is just going to become a video game. I hope to God it doesn't. I mean, that's not the reason why we go out and do it. And
Yep.
I'd also like to speak a little bit for the younger generation. Again, I'm not 30, I'm 29 for the second time. And it's like, we're not all the people that we fish with, like, are diehard live scopers by any means. Like, there's a lot of young people out there that are very comfortable fishing without live scope, that don't even use live scope, that don't have it. And great. Like, it's awesome. Like I said, if they got rid of it, we would do our thing. It would be just fine. Like I was telling Gus, and he was talking about, I mean, we've definitely musky fished more effectively without it at times. So
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's a little bit of this wave where it's like all these young guys are using it and it's going to destroy the resource. And I mean, granted, we don't know every single person in the world that musky fishes, but a lot of the buddies that we have, like, I think they use it in a proper way, and don't use it as much of a crutch as I think people think that we do. If that makes sense.
Well, I agree, and another thing would be like the 360. And the 360 is a whole different animal. I mean, it's the total opposite of, I shouldn't say the opposite, but total different technology than forward facing. Still a really devastating tool. I mean, it can be. I mean, I got buddies of mine that are way good with it, right? That can
Mm-hmm.
almost do what, to a degree, to what you're doing with forward facing. So the bottom line is, so what are you going to outlaw? What are you going to ban? Everything,
Yeah.
right? I mean, if you look at, I think probably the biggest thing that ever, not necessarily detrimental, but the biggest thing that ever came to fishing was mapping, right? I mean, I remember, I found my humps and bumps, with a lead weight, and I line up my triangle with the eagle's nest, with the blue boathouse, and the white dock, right? So, I mean, think about that. So,
Yeah,
but
it's awesome.
360 can be in the right hands, guys that know what they're doing with 360. It can almost be as devastating as forward facing, right? No shit, no kidding. I mean, I've watched guys do it. I mean, they're like, whoop, over there to the left, 15 feet, right? Whether it be a hump, a bump, or a pot of fish. So there again, where are you going to stop the technology? I don't know. I don't think you can. There again, it's another tool. If it gets out of line, when you got a guy, people that come to a tournament with 7 transducers on their boat, then you got a problem. So I would say one transducer. If people have made the investment, right? That's part of the fishing industry. Um, People have made the investment, and right now, like in the bass world, if you don't have forward facing, you're not in the game. And that could
Yeah.
be certainly in the musky world or any other world. I mean, if you don't have it, you're not in the game. Sad but
Well,
true. That's the name of the game.
that is one thing. I mean, I got we fished the trail. I like fishing the PMTT. Obviously, we're young into it, but like, they don't ban it for pre-fishing. So the people that have
Right.
made the investment into it, we still
Good.
get to use it. It's beneficial.
Yep.
Honestly, like, I don't mind the fact that we're not able to use it during the tournament. I actually like it because it kind of, like, again, it strips you down a little bit. And it's like,
Yep.
all right, you did all your homework. Now you got to go take the test.
Yep.
And you don't have your note cards, you don't have your cheat sheet, you don't have anybody quizzing you. You got to go take the test, and
Right.
and that's it. And I like that. I mean, and it, the thing that's funny is there's probably a chance that if they did have live scope, you'd see probably some of the same names up there week in, tournament in, tournament out too.
No,
So
I agree. I agree with you 100%. All I would say is that there again, the technology. So I really think that. So think about it. So BASS, all these guys, they're all running it. Pro Walleye Trail, they're all running it. Yeah, only the PMTT is the only guys that aren't running it. And I'm not beating them up on it. All I'm saying is that I think to get into the 21st century, and there again, that's coming from an old guy, one transducer, all right, okay, so what are you going to ban 360? I mean, how far are you going to go, right?
Right.
I mean, think about it. To me, there again, to reiterate, the biggest advent, the biggest technology in fishing in my lifetime has been mapping. Period. It just is.
Because
Right.
What was
Because
the
ahead,
initial like reaction when side imaging first came out? Was that sort of in the same ballpark as forward facing? Like, did people view it as like just being able to
No,
see
not
fish
really. But
wherever?
the side imaging was just so it just alleviated so much time. You could run down a shoreline, and you could run around a 300-acre lake in nowadays with a side imaging, as far as fish cribs, weed edges, whatever. You can go figure that out in a 300-acre lake in 2 hours. Where it took me, 15 years to figure it out, right? So think about that. I mean, that's pretty scary. So side imaging is pretty wild technology, for sure.
Right.
But
And that's something like I was just saying before. It's like we've really always kind of had that, since we really started muskie fishing seriously. It's always been part of our game. Would you agree with that, Gus? Like, it's not obviously we had the 2D on the whatever boat we had when we were growing up, the old Miracraft, and just fishing all the spots that we knew on the chain. But yeah, I mean, it's just you're kind of seeing this new generation come up muskie fishing, and there's a lot of enthusiasm in the sport and a lot of new people doing it. And it's like most of us have just kind of grown up with that technology, so it's not so crazy. I guess just to see how people are using it. But I mean, any other kind of closing thoughts on the whole technology thing, and we can kind of wrap up with some some more fishing stories, because I was glad we got into it. I mean, it's an interesting
Yeah, I
topic.
mean,
Obviously, a lot of people are discussing it right now.
something needs to get put out there, and there again, what I hoped that never showed up wouldn't bother me any, right? I
Right.
worked my tail off figuring out what I figured out, but I'm not opposed to technology, as long as, the DNR and, excuse my language, as long as these clowns figure it out, 25 crappie limit in some lakes in Wisconsin is stupid. Minnesota went to 10 years ago. Wisconsin should have. We have enough problems with our fisheries, let alone to make it easier to slam the fish that we have left. Just, I don't know. Like I said, you regulate your fishery with your size limits and your bag limits, right? And that's what you do, and that's what we got to do. But there again,
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to technology because I think it's a learning process. Okay, I've been doing this long time, and I learn something every day on the water, and that's a glory of my business, right? I mean, I
Mhm.
learn something every day, right? And which is, to me, is just, I mean, you just want to keep going, right?
Yeah.
And people are like, Tadpole, you're fishing on a day off? I said, I got plenty of time to rest across from the Ford garage in Eagle River, man. They can plant me over in that cemetery. I'm going fishing because I love it. That's my life. That's why
Yeah.
I'm here. And I, honest to God, I mean, that sounds corny, whatever. I have never, I get a day off, I go fishing. My family looks at me, my other guys look at me like, where are you going? I'm going fishing.
Yeah.
Why?
So,
'Cause I
so
love it.
so I know you kind of touched on this, but you've kind of progressed, and I know like you've done so much musky fishing in your day, but I think now it seems like you've kind of geared your guide business a little bit more towards walleye and smallmouth, and it sounds
You
like
know,
you're
I,
pretty yeah.
Well, the shoulders, the back, that people don't realize, like, we fished tournaments back in the, let's say, the early 80s.
Hmm.
We didn't have side imaging, we didn't have this, whatever. It goes back to the technology thing. We pounded. I mean, so I'm going to tell you, I'm doing like 2 casts a minute in a 10-hour tournament, right? My back is shot, my neck's shot, my hips are shot, everything's shot. I mean, I'm shot. I'm wore out. And these days, to be a little selective on your casting or waypoints and that kind of thing helps out. But I mean, I
Hmm.
just ground. I mean, the guys that fish tournaments with me in the last 50 years, everyone will tell you, like, guy's nuts. I mean, this guy's casting, I'm casting, you know, 1 time a minute. He's casting 3 times a minute. And that's what you did. You just ground it out. We didn't have that there again, that technology. I mean, the guy, for me, it was the guy that pounded harder, caught the most fish, right? I mean, that's just what it was. And so yeah, I'm bone on everything, man. I'm done. I'm wore out. But yeah, I'll still take guys musky fishing. I try and not cast as much as I used to, but there again, you get in the boat, guys are pounding. It's like, okay, so one more line in the water. Maybe I can hook up, hand the rod off, get a follow up, get a hot fish or whatever. So I start out with well intended to where, I'm not going to go pound them today. And there I am in the middle of the half day pounding like a tournament. It's like, oh man, I'm wore out. I get home, it's like, Jesus, I'm all beat up again. It's like I fished a pro-am. But
Well, you
whatever.
still know where they live, but what about smallmouth fishing that gets you fired up these days? I mean,
They're
what's
just
the
such
deal
great
there?
fish. I mean, we catch and release them. We fought with the Wisconsin DNR for years to go to the catch and release, back during the spawn, and they fought us for 20 years. And finally, they came up and said, okay, catch and release. So, like in 2 years, in 2 years, our average smallmouth went from like 13 to 16 inches in 2 years.
Hmm.
What a great story. And what a great fish. I mean, who would not like to go out and catch smallmouth on top water, on 8 pound test, on a medium light rod? You know, I can't think of anything, maybe one thing that's better than that. Okay. I mean, holy shit, man. That's just cool. You know, I
Right.
love the smallies. I do. And we have phenomenal smallmouth fish in there. You know, I have multiple 7 pounders in my boat, which is unheard of, right? I have personally caught, you know, and I'm not bragging, I'm just telling you I've been doing it a long time, so chances are I caught more than most. I have caught hundreds of 6 pounders myself and probably 800, 900, 5 pounders. I mean, I can't tell you. So many. I've
Yeah.
been doing it so long, um, there's there's a really nice, you know, that's kind of good lead into this. Okay, talking about the forward facing, talking about the bed fishing. Okay, I fished with an old guide 30, 40 years ago, and all the other guides were wondering, what are those guys doing up in the shallow water? They thought we were bluegill fishing. They didn't even know that bass bedded. Okay. So me and another old guide, we are just, excuse my language, piss pounding these giant smallmouth on the beds for years. And nobody knew that bass even spawned and did that. Right. And now I'm to the point in my life to where I don't really care to bed fish anymore. You know, it's just like, you know, it's ducks in the pond, you know, as you get older, it's all about the resource. You know what I mean? And I just want better musky fishing, better smallmouth fishing, better everything. You know, as I get old, and I want it for my kids and grandkids, and you guys and your kids and grandkids. So yeah, so I mean, like I said, that the whole bed fishing thing to me is a little bit of a turn off. I mean, just is let them spawn, right? And I think, I'm going to tell you the story as quick as I can. There was an old timer that he was a fisheries biologist, that was independent, that lived in Eagle River. He worked for different states. He was independent. He didn't work for one state or another, right? His wife passed away when he was like 70s. Okay. So he lived over by Silver Lake and Eagle River. And he had all these projects and these deals going on his house for poison, different, you know, like, what do you call it, for poisoning the weeds, and all the different deals that were going on. And he figured out that, so the poison that they're using to kill the milfoil up here, okay, it's just bad stuff, right? Bad stuff.
Mhm.
But he told me, and this guy, the last time I talked to him before he died, he showed me his 1938 guide license, all right, which was like crazy. 1938 guide license. So he started guiding when he was like in the 19 early 21s or whatever. And he said that the poison that they're putting in to kill this milfoil right now is the worst thing you could ever do in these lakes. It does not dissipate, right? This this poison goes into the sediment. It'll kill the entire food chain, which will turn these lakes into catch and release, right? I mean, think about that. So this poison's got nowhere to go. It's basically the same stuff they use in Vietnam, right? I mean, it's a bad deal. Maybe I'm getting off track here a little bit, but the
No.
bottom line was that, you know, they're putting these poisons in to kill this milfoil, right? And it's it's basically Agent Orange, right? I mean, it's just
Well,
bad stuff.
we've heard of lakes, that have really kind of declined because of that type of
Absolutely.
stuff that used to
Well,
be amazing fisheries up here.
Brad, that used to have the Braywood, they come in and spray the milfoil, and he had the cleanest beach on the chain. I mean, he'd go down and clean the weeds and stuff, and right after they sprayed, dead fish. I mean, it was just not a good deal. So, you know, they got to figure out something with that for the money that Wisconsin is spending on milfoil. And I understand that people want instant gratification. They want the milfoil gone so they can jet ski and water ski and do whatever. But it's probably not the best thing for our lakes because poison and water does not go too well together. You know.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's the battle of tourism's up here.
yeah,
You know,
exactly.
pleasure
Yeah.
boaters versus fishermen.
Yep.
Tales
Yep.
old as
Yep.
time.
Yep. Yep.
I
Yep.
I want to go back into the muskie talk. This could be a dead end question if you didn't go, but did you ever venture out west a little bit to Hayward, fish like the Chippewa flowage heyday back when the alleged world record was caught? Did you ever go out west?
As far as what's going on with the world record,
I
Over
think
there.
that's
Did you ever fish it? Did you ever fish it around that
I think
time, like
that-
earlier in your career?
I never fished Hayward. I got to know a lot of guys over there. Years ago, we had this crazy guy in Eagle River that I guided from Milwaukee. He was actually a guardsman. His name was Larry Kleba, right? And Larry, pretty funny guy. He uh, he was a guardsman in Milwaukee. He hurt his back. He got disability or whatever. Moved to Eagle River. I guided him and his wife Tony a number of times, and then Larry started guiding muskies, right? Well, Larry had a bad back, so he got disability so he didn't have to go to work. So now he starts guiding muskies. Well, anybody got a bad back ain't guiding muskies, right? At any rate, Larry was a real character and he was involved with Muskies Inc., got to know the boys over in Hayward, who were all friends of mine, Dave Durazio, uh, Wayne and Randy Gooch, Pete Mena, Mike Brandt. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So funny. And so we used to have a tournament in Butternut Lake over by Park Falls, and it was called the FJ Swint. Well, FJ Swint held the world record muskie for like, I don't know, a couple of years, like in 1940 or something. So the only picture with FJ Swint, the guy standing next to his muskie, which was probably at least a 45 incher, right? With a cocktail, a cigar in his mouth, um, and his name was FJ Swint. So we had this FJ Swint tournament, and we had it on Butternut Lake over by Park Falls, which is kind of halfway between Hayward and Eagle River. So all the
Mhm.
guides and a bunch of drunk muskie fishermen would meet there every year for like 2 days. They're good. Pete Mena, oh my God. There's so many guys. And we would go there, and it was just a dirty bedwetter drunk. I mean, period. It was a drunk. And we would fish for like a couple hours, and and then we'd all wet our pants and get drunk and be done. You know, but that was the FJ Swint. Who was it? Mike Brandt, Pete Mena. Oh shoot, and I knew Pete Mena and all. Pete. I can't tell you stories about Pete, but Pete'd be in jail. So would I. So the characters. These people were such characters. Fun. John Detloff, John, controversial over there with the muskie thing. Great guy. Him and his wife, absolute great people. And so fortunate to meet all these people and hang with them. And there's so many good people and not that many assholes. I'll tell you what. There's just not. Really, in our business, there's a handful, and I can bring them up, but I'm not gonna. Initials maybe. Yeah, I just so lucky to be here where I am. And there again, think about it. 3 years in eighth grade, right? Wonderful family, great kids. I'm just so lucky, right?
Yeah.
And to do what I've done and to meet the people I've done, yeah, I'm a way lucky guy. And shout out to these guys. Look at these guys, right? Like 4 years ago, these guys are powdering their nuts in the Eagle River, right? Floundering around on the Eagle River chain, and now where are they? Right? I mean, they're on the money. People know who they are. They work hard, and that's the big thing. They work hard. They're into it. Got great supporting family. Very lucky. And we have touched on this, and I'm getting probably close to having another whiskey, but I'm gonna tell you this. So think about this. So this just came up a little bit ago in the tournament world, the PMTT world. Okay, not in the PMTT world, the walleye world, the bass world. I'm talking at the highest level. All right. So Wisconsin keeps pushing out these phenomenal freaking fishermen, right? Muskie wise, walleye wise, bass wise. I mean, we're talking world class level, right? World class level. Okay, so you have in northern Wisconsin, all right, Dan Matuza, Ryan Bach, the Barbers, the Banthys, right? I mean, and I'm missing some, and they'll come to me. Okay, then you look in the walleye world, Cavias, Parsons. Me. I mean, I did well. Okay, won a championship. Look at Peroskrit from. I have a hard time pronouncing the name. Right now, he just finished second or third in the BASS today. Right. Walleye World, Muskie World, Bass World. Right. And why are these guys so good? Because we have all these different water clarities in Wisconsin. These guys deal with clear water or dark water or medium water or rivers. We have everything here, right? And that, to me, that is so cool. I could, when I was on a pro walleye trail in the early 90s, I could go to a body of water, okay, Devil's Lake, Lake Erie, uh, Pure, South Dakota, Lake Hawaii, Mille Lacs, whatever. I go to that lake and that's like Eagle Lake. Well, that's like North Twin. Well, that's like the rainbow. That's like the rainbow, right? I look at that water clarity. I had them figured out, and these other guys do too, and that's why we are so good. And if you look overall in the walleye, bass, muskie world, why the best fishermen come from central northern Wisconsin, because we have all the water. We can figure it out, right? So think about it. You got North Twin, you got Trout Lake, you know, you got the Wisconsin River, you got Eagle River, you got 4 Mile. Look at 4 Mile. My God, it's coffee, it's black, right? We have all the water clarities, right? That's why we are ruling, and I'm thinking that's pretty cool, right? Right? Yeah, I mean,
I can tell you're
cool.
proud of it. And, no, yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, honestly, we've met some awesome people up in this neck of the woods. I mean, people, yeah, we travel with for the PMTT, the Barbers, Clayton Spees, Nick
Absolutely.
Ambrose.
Yep,
we've
yep.
learned, Gus, you know, we've learned a infinite amount of knowledge from just a few years, you know, hanging out with
Right.
them. And
Right.
obviously we're younger guys. They've been doing it for longer than we have. But like, you know, yeah, we go down to Kentucky, you know, you see the first and second place team, and Brian Krell and Nate Osfer and Dan, and obviously his partner Jason's from Minnesota, but you know, historic angler, obviously. You know, cool to see those guys getting it done. And I joked with Gus, I think, on a recap pod from Cave Run. It's like, didn't even feel like those guys had their best stuff, and they were still, you know, 1 and 2. But there's a lot of amazing anglers all over. I mean, obviously we're proud to be from Wisconsin and the Vilas in Oneida County. Or there's a lot of great anglers all through Wisconsin.
I mean, to me, that's just that's really cool, you know, and that's where there again, I went out on a rookie on a walleye trail in 91, 92, and got hooked. My traveling partner was a guy by the name of Mike Thurl, or Thurl, whatever you want to talk him, and Mike was he was like the, you know, he was probably the best walleye angler that not many people ever heard of. He was always in the money. He cashed more checks than anybody, and we were a traveling partner. And I got hooked up with Mike with the guy by the name of Norb Wallach, who was a infamous guide up here and walleye angler. And I said, hey Norb, I want to go fish on a walleye trail. Who should I go with? And he goes, Mike Thurl. He didn't even stutter. He said Mike Thurl, because he knew we partied. He knew we fished hard. And we went out and we kicked butt, man. We cashed checks, and I won the national championship, and it was just such a hoot. The guy would wake me up every morning with a flying body slam, right? So we're in the same hotel room, right? And we both, you know, we'd fish till like 9 at night, you know, party till 1, and then get up at 4 to go pre-fishing. So Mike's in one bed and I'm in the other bed. He would launch off his bed and hit me with the heel of his elbow in the back of my neck to wake me up every morning, right? And then we would pre-fish from like 6 in the morning to like dark, you know. Hey, Mike, can we go in and get something to eat? Nope. We got to pre-fish, right? And you know what? This guy, he was a MacGyver of walleye fishing. He cashed more checks than Mr. Consistency. I mean, the guy, think about it. So it's not always about the big names that are always there making, you know, they win a big one every once in a while. Mike cashed a check all the time. And it's still one of the best walleye fish. I always call him the second best jig fisherman I ever knew. I think I knew who number 1 was.
Well, I wonder who that was. You know, I think of one thing, you know, you can take away from like all this shit, you know, talking about like there's a separation, right? With like fishermen, musky anglers, walleye anglers, whatever, and social media world things where I think things have gotten a little weird. It's a fun group of people, good group of people. You've talked about all the awesome people you've met. I've talked to Gus and Brian about this. Like, damn, we've met a lot of really cool people in the last few years. And I think, that needs to be said a little bit. I think there's a lot of preaching, a little bit of doom and gloom and how kind of, maybe weird the fishing industry is, but I think overall there's a lot of really awesome people that are involved in this sport.
I absolutely agree. I mean, that's some of my fondest memories, the friendships. I mean, guys that I haven't talked to in 15, 20 years that I've hooked up with in the last 6, 8 months out of nowhere. It's like, I mean, we're almost like crying like little kids. You remember that? And yeah, you remember that? Yeah, you remember that? Oh my God. And we're just crying and we're laughing so hard. We had so much fun. It's just like, wow, we are so lucky, and now hopefully hand it off to you guys. And like I said, the one of the last things I would say is that and if I mentioned it before, I don't know, I've been, he's been plying me with whiskey again, but, you guys are, the way you guys have picked up on it and grabbed it and taken off with it. And that's what it takes. You have to, it's kind of like me when I started golfing years ago. I mean, I've never golfed in my life. In 2 years, in the first year, I golfed 127 9-hole rounds, right?
Okay. Pretty good.
Think about that, right? My wife
That's
never
a lot of
saw
golf.
me. The next year, I hit my first hole in one, and I won the club championship. But that's what it takes. It's just like, whoop,
Where'd you make your hole?
Go.
Where'd you make your hole in one?
Lake Forest, number 2.
Okay, all right.
Which is no longer with us, by the way.
Yeah.
I got one to my name in the North Woods. That's on the 18th hole in Eagle River.
Oh yeah, tough hole. I could hit that with a 4-wood.
Not that day.
That is too funny. Appreciate those words and from you, Tadpole. But I mean, also the Northwoods definitely produces quite a few number of fishermen and all sorts of species for sure. But maybe looking forward here to 2024. I know you said you don't do as much musky fishermen, but for opener here and maybe tips to the listeners out there on I mean, maybe we're getting kind of an early spring this year. We had a really funky winter, funky ice out. Ice came out in March and then re-upped right again for a couple of weeks and then, got out again. And, fish might be in a funk. Fish might be still spawning. Fish might be spawned out for a while. Like what would you have for words of wisdom on the people going out on northern opener, say they're fishing in just, the northern half of Wisconsin up here this year?
I'll tell you what, if it gets really hot, a lot of people miss it. There is an open water bite. These fish will suspend. There's some great videos on in fishermen and stuff. I mean, it's just stupid. People go out and they struggle with the shallow water twitch bait thing, and it's just not going. And these fish will slide out, and they will slide out. And there's some great videos out there, and I've seen it. I had to see it to believe it. But I mean, in the middle of early to mid spring, these fish will be 6 feet down in 30 feet of water. And I've seen it more than once. I've seen it with walleyes. I've seen it with muskies. That kind of everybody's like, oh, the shallow little twitch bait thing up in the North Bays and stuff. Well, when that poops out, go take a look in that open water because those fish are there. And when they're up high in that open water, they are eating. They're not out there for a little fling. They're out there chasing bait and they're eating it. And so many guys miss that bite, right? And I've capitalized it on a few times in tournaments. The magic number for me seems to be about 8 feet down in the dark water, like the Eagle River chain. And most people never even look at it. They just go out and say, oh, they're off. It's too cold, it's too warm, whatever. But they're out roaming in that open water. And there again, with technology, side imaging, 360, whatever, you'll see them. And when they're that high, those fish are eating. Period. They're not out there joyriding. They're out there eating. So that's one tip I would give you. If they're off on that shallow bite, and it warms up really quick. And I've seen the walleyes do that. I'm gonna tell you a short, quick story. I had an old customer of mine out, so it would have been Michigan opener for walleyes. We were up on a big lake up north in Wisconsin. We had our limit like in 25 minutes. This is years ago, and we were killing, 10 walleyes. We caught 10 quality walleyes from 15 to 22 inches. And we had like, 6 hours left to go in the day. I said, let's get a Michigan license. We're going to go up there. So we went up there, dropped in. This is like May, okay, Michigan Open is May 15th. We get up there at May 15th, 16th, 17th, get up there and we're putting around. I hit a couple of my weed bedges and edges and stuff, little rock flats, and they're not there. So I'm going along, and all of a sudden, out of my flasher back in those days, right, I catch this blip at like 5 feet down in 20 feet of water, right? And I knew it was a walleye because that's what's in the lake. So I dropped the boards in, and I mean, we caught we were done in 15 minutes with 15 to 25-inch walleyes in 10 minutes, and they were 5 feet down in 20 feet of water. Well, the muskies will do the same thing, all right? They go where the food is. So, people get these ideas in their head, and it just sticks. And there is, you got to follow the food, number one. And yeah, so believe me, that open water bite can be an early spring deal. Believe me, when the water really warms up really quick. So, little tidbit for me.
What do you think those muskies are chasing out there in the open water? What do you think moves out there? Do you think the panfish are kind of going out there because of the bugs mainly, or?
Yeah, I would tell you it's the perch fry. When the water warms up that quick, these fish want to go to with the bait fish, they want to be in the warm water. So they come up to the upper level of the lake, right, which is 5, 6, 7 feet down, and we've all been there. You're out in the middle of the lake, in the middle of the day, in the spring or early summer, and here's all these bait, there's all the bait out there in the open water, up on the surface, in 20 feet of water. Well, the game fish are right underneath them, and nobody fishes them because they just think it's a fluke and still got to go shallow. But they are where the food is, guys. That's the bottom line. Follow the food, catch the fish.
Follow the food, catch the fish. It's easy as that, everybody.
Yeah, easy.
It's easy as that. It's true though. It's true. All right. Well, we got some closing remarks on opener. I don't know, guys. Do you have any lingering questions here? I think Tadpole's been very generous with his time. I think we got another megapod on our hands here. Got a full rundown of a bunch of stories, and it's been a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, definitely big time. I mean, we'll have to have you on again, Tadpole, and have you over for another crown and crown and water, which is what do they say, the best kept secret in the Northwood?
They call it a tadpole, yeah, but no, crown them down. And for me to do a podcast, I need at least 5 minutes notice, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds good. That's perfect. Man, that's awesome. Well,
if you're ever at any local Eagle River establishments and order a Tadpole, you're going to be getting now.
What you're getting for sure. And before that, before you go do that, make sure to stop in at Tadpole's in town, right on Wall Street. So pick up something.
The last thing I would say is that all my bullshit's based on fact, okay? So come on, see me, guys.
Yeah.
That sounds great. Before we sign off here at Tadpole, I mean, like I said, we're definitely gonna have to get you on again. I think there's some great stories that we could talk about probably all night for days and days and days. But we really appreciate your time coming over here and chopping it up with us. I know this is new for you, but we appreciate it. It's just awesome. If you have anything to add at the end, or maybe drop your the name of your shop, your number, if you want, for people to reach you, or anything.
No, I think if they really want to find me, they'll find me. But I'll tell you what, I really enjoy hanging with you guys, and I've got so many friends in the fishing industry that are here and gone. I love what I do. I'm very lucky, and I just come on to Eagle River. I'll help you out best I can. And yeah, it's been a great life. And like I said, it's so much fun. I mean, I just like, I people ask me now, they're like, well, Tadpole, you got a day off. What are you gonna do in it? I'm going fishing. Like I said, you nuts? And I said, no. I love what I do. I learn something every day, and this is one of the coolest things about what we do. I learn something every day. I've been doing this for way longer than you guys are alive, and I learn something every day. And how cool is that? That I can go out and get smarter every day, right?
Yeah.
And that's my life, and I'm thrilled to do it, and thrilled to have people like you hanging out with me. And yeah, we can, like I said, I need at least 5 minutes notice to come hang out with you guys. Okay, right? Love you, man.
All right. Love you too,
We
Tab.
can make that work. Appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Well,
Thank you.
yeah, we really do. We thank you for your time. It's been a lot of fun. Some of those stories are just awesome. I mean, it's just cool hearing about it. Great perspective on all fronts. So thanks for popping on with us tonight. We had a lot of fun.
Got her, boys. You got her.
All right. We cannot thank Tadpole enough for coming on the podcast here tonight and sharing his time and stories and everything that he has on just the world of fishing and everything from the Northwoods. I mean, like Max said, he's wearing the Northwoods badge proud. Raised up here, cut his teeth by guiding and pretty much just learning everything from, just going out in the water and doing it and coming up all the way into the fishing industry and how it is now. And we kind of talked on all fronts there from the beginning to, technology nowadays. And it was awesome. Had a great talk there. And I think from that, I don't know if who wants to start here, but maybe brush over quick on some of their main takeaways from this talk that we just had with Tadpole.
Yeah, I mean, that was a lot of fun. That's a good time.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed that conversation. I think I took away a lot. I guess I want to clarify just a few things. I would say, as far as the forward-facing sonar goes, my opinion or whatever is evolving on it. Week by week, month by month,
Mm-hmm.
year by year. Whatever.
It's
It's
natural.
not
Yeah.
it's not a stagnant. It's not a hard, fast rule, hard, fast opinion. It's kind of been this like evolving deal as more information comes out, more technology comes out. It's always going to be
Mm-hmm.
kind of a evolving process. So I just want to say that take it easy on us if you're like f those guys or whatever. But it's
Right.
I appreciated the conversation because like we really haven't had it on this podcast. Obviously, it's like a clickbaity topic, but I think it's kind of interesting topic. Like I enjoy listening to people talk about it. So it's fun to kind of dive into it every once in a while. As far as like the fishermen in Eagle River, yes, that's great. There's obviously if we've seen fishing on the trail, there's a million amazing anglers all around the country that we've gotten the pleasure to know. So there's the world of the muskie fishing is vast, and I think it's really cool to meet people that we've gotten the ability to know that fish in Virginia, West Virginia, Kentucky, Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin, all the different states, Pennsylvania, obviously, New York. So it's been Ohio. It's been awesome. But yeah, as far as takeaways go from the interview, I mean, it's just cool. Anytime you get to talk to somebody who spent that much time on the water, I think you always get to learn a thing or two. It's takeaways as far as like what I actually learned from the interview. I mean, there's just a lot. Just talking to somebody who's been doing it for a long time. Obviously very knowledgeable. It's interesting to hear about how many fish they used to catch back in the day in certain lakes in Miles County.
Brian shaking his head.
You know,
We're
I
all shaking
wish
our heads like,
I
come on,
wish
man.
that was the case still, but obviously I don't think that will ever happen again. But cool to hear people talk about it and what it was. Brian,
Yeah.
what did you take away from the interview?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it was a lot of story talk. Had a little, live scope debate, forward facing sonar debate. I think it'd be great, to get him on again here later this summer and kind of dive into more of like fishing specifics and like his tactics and his evolution of like learning about muskie from when he started. But yeah, I mean, what stuck with me is catching 19 fish in 4 hours. I mean, just the ridiculous heyday they had. And he's true. Like it seems like, obviously with a lot more pressure on these lakes, like when he was talking about topwater fishing, the fish would explode on a lure and jack it 3 feet in the air. And I think it still happens, but typically you'll see a fish stalk it or it'll just kind of nip at it and pull it under the water. And they're definitely a little bit more timid than the stories you hear back in the day. But yeah, I just hope, I guess, in terms of forward facing sonar, that it doesn't make these fish even harder to catch with an increased pressure. And I think it will in the long run. But yeah, we'll see on that.
Well, one thing I want to add real quick about that, I was talking about kind of the younger generation, how we use technology, and like obviously this isn't like a blanketed statement. It doesn't go for every single young person that's a fisherman. But like, I think the only point I was trying to get across is like, it's cool to see Tadpole, someone his age, like embrace technology and like have that perspective, because it's like, I think the younger generation a little bit gets branded as the people that are like going to ruin the resource, that are going to abuse technology. Like all I wanted to say was like, hey, there are advocates out there that are, either whether they're against it or using it, like there are people that are just doing it fine, properly. And even the people that are really good at it, there are people out there that are going to be like advocates to sustain this resource, sustain the fishability of these lakes. And like I get a little bit not like ticked off, but like it just kind of hits the nerve a little bit when you kind of get branded as like, oh, there's just these younger kids that are just going to be reckless with the resource and like abuse it because they have all this technology at their fingertips. When I don't think that's the case, because I've met so many people now fishing the trail, fishing up here, that I think do it properly, use the technology the way it's, I guess supposed to be used. I don't know what that really means, but there's enough people
Right.
I think that that
Responsibly,
understand,
use it
yeah, that
responsibly.
they understand what it is. Like
Yeah.
you take it away, they're still going to be good fishermen. I don't like this brand of like, you're young, you use technology, you wouldn't have been a good angler, if you don't have it. It's like, no, there's a lot of people out there that like I said, you probably see the similar names up on the top of the leaderboard of the PMTT if you had live facing sonar or not. So
Yeah.
that's the only point I was trying to get across. Like we will continue to advocate for this sport. That's all.
Yes. No. And that kind of goes into my takeaway from the interview. I mean, I agree that I love that Tadpole is, just he's an advocate for it all. Like he is embracing the technology, but he also, yeah. And I've fished with Tadpole in his boat, and using live scope, and he definitely knows how to use it, but he's an advocate as well for, like he said, of, lowering bag limits on fish. I don't know if I'm gonna word it exactly correctly on how he said it in the interview, but I really liked how he said it. It was something like, it's not what you do when you catch the fish, it's what you do after you catch the fish. And I mean that in a very short sentence, even if I said it correctly or incorrectly, it kind of shows the point of like, once you catch a fish, it's like, what do you do with it? Obviously, you catch some crappies, you might keep some, but if you catch a ton of crappies and you keep a ton of crappies, that could be a problem. Or you catch a muskie and you keep it in the boat for a while, like once you catch it and then you mishandle it and stuff, that's when it becomes the problem. And I think that's where, hopefully we go through the education as best as we can here on this podcast and social media, all the people in the videos of, I mean, there's a ton of friends of ours that we've met now recently that have they're making phenomenal YouTube videos And on top of that, they're like, extreme advocates of proper handling, and that's, come a long ways with the catch and release. Obviously, we heard the stories how they began with Tadpole on the catch and kill days. That was pretty wild. I know in between there's all sorts of things that we've talked about with other friends where they had the catch and putting the live wells and bring the fish in to get, measured and stuff like that, where they'd take the fish in their live wells,
Like a
and
bass tournament.
bring them in. Yeah, like a bass tournament. And it's come a long ways, no doubt about it. And obviously the pressure is up here in the Northwoods, but that's fine. I mean, we're all advocating more people to get into fishing because fishing is just awesome.
Fun.
I mean, it's how we meet all these great people and have a lot of fun. I mean, that's how we all come together,
Yeah.
And
then too, it's like handling the fish. It's, you talk about it because, you advocate it and you talk about it because it's a hard thing to do, right? Like no matter
Mhm.
what you do, you can try to do everything perfect and like things still just might not go exactly according to plan. So it's like,
Yep.
I think that's why there's kind of this conversation about how you handle fish, and that's great because we try our best, and even with that, like it's not always going to be like a perfect procedure of take it out of the net. If it's a big fish, you bump it perfectly, you take the picture perfectly, and the fish swims away. I mean, at the end of the day, like going out, you're trying to catch these fish, you're driving 7-aught hooks through their face, you're fighting them for 20 seconds to 2 minutes. They're
Stressing them
driving you
out.
around the boat. They're they're freaking out. They think they're eating a Cisco or a perch. Next thing you know, they're flying through the air. So yeah, it's a good discourse, I think, to have. I would say that we're all pretty open minded when it comes to it. I'd like to think, and
Yeah.
welcome the conversation. It's a good one to have because I think as we move forward here, having I guess a platform and a podcast, it's a good thing to talk about. So whether we have somebody on that has a different opinion, I think that's great. I'll open to hearing all spectrums of the argument, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely does. I mean, yeah, like we were saying in the podcast, you take live scope away and it's not like a huge deal for us. I know we've talked about before the tournaments, it's like we use it to pre-fish a little bit here and there, but it's almost like a breath of fresh air when we don't use it during the tournament. And I know a lot of people think the same, and and just as Tadpole said, going down to like one unit honestly wouldn't be a terrible idea. I mean, I mean, keeping it in a level playing field, I mean, it's not a huge deal. I mean, when it starts to get multiple and you just get people taking 5 casts a day, that's like the whole end of the spectrum. That's what Max was talking about when he was saying black and white. Like there's the gray area here with this technology, but I guess the only thing that I would be a little worried about would be the regulation on that during the tournaments. As we know, we're fishing lakes that are 10,000 plus acres, a lot of islands, a lot of hiding spots, a lot of sketchy people out there. We don't want to, yeah, don't want to see that happening. But it's tournament fishing. When there's money involved, there's always stuff to be had, anyways. So, um, anyways, before we talk about that too much, let's well, I think we I think we're good to
Has
close
this been
out.
has this been our most controversial podcast to date?
Possibly. Yeah.
Brian, what are you going to do when we get flamed in the comments?
How are you gonna take the heat, Brian?
I'll just respond like Tadpole. I'm old, so I don't care if I get yelled at.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's going to be like the one blessing
That's
about
it.
continuing to age. You just care less, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. I might as well just say this now because I think this pertains to that. I was just chatting with a good friend Charlie, and I was telling him that when I get older, hopefully I'm still doing this. Hopefully I'm still fishing. Um, I got the passion and everything, but when I'm older, I want to be that guy where some kid comes up to me and is like, hey, Mr. Gus, well, I was thinking about fishing this lake, and he could say any lake in the entire country, and I'll go, yep, big fish in there. Big fish in there. Get them all
They're in
fired
there.
up.
They're in there.
Get them. Yep, they're in. Oh, they might be tough. There's a couple, but they're in there. You know that weed bed right there in the south end. That's a good one. That's a good one. Oh, don't miss that point on the north. Yeah, I just just to get the
I'm gonna do
just to
that
get
in a
them
not
fired
fishing
up.
guide.
It's like the same thing. It's like the same thing that I'd say Tadpole probably did to us. You know,
Oh,
it's
he led
just
us on some
he got
wild goose chases.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
but that's all right. He got us like super passionate about the sport, and I mean, we just learned a lot, and I think I don't know. Hopefully one day I'll get to that, but I'll stop letting the Montucky cold snacks talk, and let's get to the outro here. We'll fill you in on before we let you guys go. We'll give you our Instagrams. It's the Muskies on Tap for all the stuff that we post, the podcasts, the reels that we'll put out, content, stuff like that. Also have my own Instagram, Suggs Fishing, and that's where you can find all the pictures that I end up posting about the fish that we catch throughout the season. Post stories with updates on things, open dates, this and that. And also can find me on Facebook at Suggs Fishing Guide Service, or add me as a friend, Gus Manty, and shoot me a message whenever you want. Talk fishing, get you a trip booked, anything like that. Don't be afraid. Don't hesitate to ask us or send us a message. We love hearing from you guys. And you guys got anything else to add on this one? I mean, this was an action-packed podcast here.
We're 2 weeks away from Northern Wisconsin opener, so it's real. It's getting real.
Yeah, the next podcast out, we'll probably do something fairly special again. We got probably potential multiple guests lined up, and talking about multiple areas of northern Wisconsin. So we're pretty pumped about that.
Making big promises. Mouse writing some big checks.
Hopefully it all comes to fruition here. Yep.
Might be the beer, but we'll see.
We're gonna be chatting around. Yep.
We're doing our best, guys. We're not professionals at this. All right.
We're not professionals. I don't know why you guys are still listening here at the end. It's probably on hour 2 of this thing. This is too good. I don't know. All right, Brian.
All right, everybody. Thank you for
Take
listening to this
us
episode of
away.
Muskies on Tap. We will let you get out of here on this one. Shout out to Tadpole for coming on this week. An absolute beauty of the North Woods, a legend. Great man. He's got a great shop in Eagle River, so be sure to go check it out. 2 weeks away from Northern Opener. Stay tuned next week. As Gus said, at least one legendary guest coming on again to get everyone started on the right path for the opener. Let's just hope the wind ain't blowing like a bus full of peace.
Rory McIlroy, Valhalla.
It's a lock. Lock in, Rory, guys. Going back to back at Valhalla. Come on now.
That's crazy.